So a letter arrives at a small-town police station, and it's promising 14 brutal murders. And then, halfway across the country, a prominent activist is mailed a package laced with, well, anthrax.
Yeah, which is just a wild way to start a story.
Right. Usually when we talk about a thriller, there's this expectation of a straight line, like a lit fuse, you know?
Hmm.
You see the spark, you watch it travel down the cord, and you know exactly where the explosion is going to happen. It's linear, it's clean.
Which is comfortable, honestly. Like, you know who is hunting who, and you just follow the path.
Exactly. But then you step into the world of Stephen King's 2025 novel, Never Flinch, and that straightforward fuse is just completely gone. We are looking at a narrative landscape that is, well, it's terrifyingly complex.
Oh, absolutely.
So for our deep dive today, we're pulling from a massive stack of sources. We've got literary reviews, detailed plot summaries, Wikipedia, and some very passionate constant reader Reddit threads.
Which are always a goldmine.
Well, totally. And our mission today is to dissect how King takes these two completely separate, terrifying storylines and basically weaves them into this giant Rube Goldberg machine of terror. We're going to unpack the deeply disturbed psychology of the villains and examine the evolution of one of King's most beloved characters, Holly Gibney.
And you know, to really understand what King is doing here, we first have to talk about what kind of story Never Flinch actually is. Because I think people might go in with the wrong idea.
Right, like expecting Pennywise or something.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going into this expecting classic King horror, like ancient evils lurking in the sewers or vampires or telekinesis, you need to recalibrate your expectations entirely.
Yeah.
This is a very grounded, slow burn, psychological crime thriller. There are no supernatural monsters driving the plot here.
Which is almost Carrier, right?
I mean, I think so.
Yeah.
The monsters here are entirely human, which in many ways makes them far more frightening.
I want to explore that, actually, because the inspiration behind this grounded approach is kind of wild. King started writing this back in early 2023, and he's mentioned that one of his early inspirations was the real-life 2021 dog napping of Lady Gaga's pets.
It sounds like such a strange jumping-off point for a dark psychological thriller, doesn't it? Like you wouldn't connect those two things.
It really does. But it makes perfect sense when you break down the mechanics of it. You know, you have this ordinary, albeit tragic, street crime that just suddenly spirals into this massive, escalating media circus with incredibly high unexpected stakes.
Right, and that is really the core engine of this book. It's escalation. King is fascinated by how a small action, or in this case, a past injustice, can just snowball into nationwide panic. It's about unintended consequences compounding upon themselves.
Which brings us back to that Rube Goldberg machine analogy.
Yeah.
You know those intricate contraptions where a marble rolls down a chute, knocks over a domino, which triggers a catapult, and so on?
Right.
At the start of this novel, we have these disparate, seemingly unconnected threads. But slowly, inevitably, they interlock to create this massive, inescapable trap.
Yeah.
And the first domino to fall is what the press calls the surrogate juror murders. So Detective Izzy Janes in Buckeye City, Ohio, is investigating this letter sent by someone calling themselves Bill Wilson.
And the premise of this letter is just a fascinating corruption of legal philosophy. Are you familiar with the Blackstone ratio?
That's the old English legal principle, right?
Yeah.
That it is better that 10 guilty persons escape than one innocent suffer.
Precisely. Yes, Sir William Blackstone formulated that back in the 1760s, and it's basically the bedrock of our justice system. But this killer, Bill Wilson, he turns that completely upside down.
Okay, how so?
Well, he demands atonement for a man named Alan Duffrey. Now, Duffrey was an innocent man who was framed for possessing illegal imagery by a jealous coworker, a guy named Cary Tolliver. Right. So Duffrey was convicted, sent to prison, and subsequently murdered while incarcerated. Now, years later, Tolliver is dying of cancer, and he's confessed to the frame-up.
Wait, I need to stop you there because this seems incredibly convoluted. If this killer is so obsessed with punishing the people who wronged Duffrey, wouldn't a direct revenge killing just be more satisfying? Like, why not just kill Tolliver or the judge? Why go through this elaborate proxy murder scheme?
Well, because direct revenge isn't agonizing enough for him. The killer's logic is what elevates this from a standard procedural into actual psychological warfare.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, he plans to murder random, innocent people and then place the names of the original trial jurors in the hands of these dead innocents.
That is so dark.
It is.
Yeah.
His goal isn't just to eliminate the guilty, the jurors, the judge, the prosecutor, and Tolliver. His goal is to make them live with this suffocating psychological torment of knowing that their past mistake is actively causing innocent people to die today.
Wow.
Yeah, he wants them to suffer profoundly, not just die quickly.
That is deeply sadistic. So Detective Izzy James is staring down the barrel of a killer who is playing this grand, philosophical game of chess, essentially. She realizes she's just way out of her depth, so she brings in a consultant, her friend, private investigator, Holly Gibney.
And this is where the dynamic of the investigation really shifts, because almost immediately, Holly makes a crucial connection that the entire police department missed.
Right, the name.
Exactly. She recognizes the alias Bill Wilson as the real-life founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, which suggests the killer might be connected to recovery groups, and that narrows the search grid tremendously.
We really need to talk about how Holly operates, because this is her 7th book appearance, I think. And if you look back at her in the early Mr. Mercedes days, she was this shy, deeply traumatized, almost non-functioning recluse.
Oh yeah, totally different.
Right, but now she runs her own agency, Finders Keepers. But it's not just that she notices things, it's how she processes them. She has these neurodivergent traits where she simply doesn't filter out the background noise like the rest of us do.
Yeah, it's her superpower, but it comes at a steep cost. You know, King doesn't magically cure her anxiety just because she's competent now.
No, definitely not.
What's really compelling about Holly's evolution is how King portrays her internal life. Like, she has finally managed to quit smoking, which is a monumental personal victory for her, but she still constantly craves it.
Yeah.
And more importantly, she is constantly balancing these two competing voices in her head. She has the imagined, encouraging voice of her late mentor, Bill Hodges, urging her forward, but then she also has the harsh, critical, belittling voice of her late mother, constantly trying to tear her down.
It's a remarkably authentic depiction of living with complex trauma.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just get over it, you learn to function at a high level while carrying it.
Exactly.
But just as Holly is really sinking her teeth into this intricate Bill Wilson mystery, King introduces the second thread of our Rube Goldberg machine, Kate McKay.
And this is where the scope of the novel blows wide open. Kate McKay is a charismatic, outspoken, and highly controversial women's rights activist. She is on a nationwide lecture tour, and she is being hunted.
And the escalation of this hunt is just terrifying. We aren't just talking about angry emails or, internet trolls. Her stalker throws liquid in the face of Kate's assistant, Corey Anderson, in Reno. And Corey thinks she's been blinded, and it turns out to be bleach.
It's awful.
It is. And then later, they're sent a letter containing what is identified as anthrax. Like, it's biological warfare on a personal scale.
Right. Which introduces us to the stalker himself, Christopher Stewart. Though, as with everything in this novel, it's far more complex than just a lone angry man.
Right.
Christopher manifests an alter ego of his deceased twin sister, Chrissy. Chris is also deeply entrenched in the Real Christ Holy Church, an extremist group. And he's being actively manipulated by a man named Deacon Andrew Fallows, who essentially convinces Chris that targeting Kate McKay isn't just a political statement, it's a divine mandate from God.
Okay, and just to be clear for our listeners, as we dive into this, we are just neutrally reporting on the themes here. The book touches on feminism, abortion, religious extremism, but King is really just using these real-world ideological divides to fuel the tension of the thriller. We're not taking any sides here.
Right, absolutely. He's just holding up a mirror to the extreme polarities in society right now and showing how they create a powder keg.
Yeah, but I'm trying to wrap my head around the pacing here. You have this slow burn, highly analytical police procedural happening in Ohio with Holly, and then you have this high octane, terrifyingly immediate stalker thriller happening out on the road with Kate.
Yeah.
How does King keep those two drastically different tempos from just clashing with one another?
By using thematic glue, like while the tempos are different, the underlying tension is identical. Both storylines are driven by ideological extremes.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that oppressive atmosphere is what forces the two storylines to finally intersect. So Corey, Kate's assistant, is obviously traumatized by the bleach attack. She decides they absolutely need a bodyguard, but she specifically wants a non-police female protector.
Because she doesn't trust the authorities.
Right. She doesn't trust the traditional authorities to really understand the nuance of their threat. So she reaches out and hires Holly Gibney.
Which gives us one of the greatest character contrasts King has ever written, I think.
Oh, it really is.
You have Kate, who is brash, completely media savvy, thrives in the limelight, and will gladly scream into a microphone.
Yeah.
And then you have Holly, who is deeply insecure, avoids the spotlight at all costs, and literally says the word poop instead of swearing.
Yeah.
It's this incredible odd couple dynamic, but it works because they both share this core of absolute steel.
Definitely. But to truly understand why these specific characters are on a collision course, we really need to dig into the psychology of the villains they are up against. Like, let's look at the serial killer first, the one signing his letters, Bill Wilson.
Yeah, let's lay the cards on the table for the listener. The killer is a man named Donald Gibson, who goes by the nickname Trig. And the brilliant twist here is that Trig was actually one of the jurors who convicted the innocent Alan Duffrey.
Yes, he is literally part of the system he is trying to punish.
Exactly. He's a recovering alcoholic, but more importantly, he is haunted by the voice of his abusive father. His father was a brutal man who constantly drilled a specific phrase into him, which was never flinch.
Which is the title.
Right. And what begins as Trig's twisted, arguably guilt-driven quest for justice, it rapidly mutates into a full-blown addiction. Like he trades his addiction to alcohol for an addiction to murder.
And then on the other side of the country, you have the stalker, Chris, or Chrissy. Chris is haunted by the unresolved grief of losing his twin sister to a heart condition when they were just 7 years old.
Oh, man.
But the true damage was done by his mother. Instead of getting her surviving son's psychological help, she basically enabled his fractured reality. Yeah, she bought him dresses and a wig so he could literally be Chrissy for her. And now he is guided by the voice of his mother in his head, telling him what to do.
Okay, the thematic mirroring here is actually profound.
Yeah.
Like both of these villains are deeply traumatized men, and both are actively possessed by the voices of their parents.
That's the hidden genius of the book. King is fundamentally writing a story about inherited trauma. The ghosts in this novel aren't supernatural entities. They are the toxic voices of the previous generation, literally possessing the current one.
Yeah.
You have Daddy driving Trig to be ruthless and never flinch. You have Mommy enabling Chris's fractured identity. And both men use extreme ideologies. You know, Trig uses the concept of absolute legal atonement, and Chris uses the concept of absolute religious certainty to justify just horrific violence.
So how do these two separate sparks ignite the same barrel of gunpowder? Basically, it all comes down to geography and a very fateful weekend in Buckeye City, Ohio. Kate's nationwide tour happens to have a stop booked at the Mingo Auditorium in Buckeye City.
Right. And King introduces a crucial supporting cast here to pull the web even tighter. We meet Sista Bessie, a legendary, world-famous gospel singer who decides to come out of retirement.
I love her character.
She's great. She happens to read a poetry book written by Barbara Robinson. Now, Barbara is a close friend of Holly's. Bessie loves the poetry so much, she invites Barbara to be her backup singer.
Yeah.
Furthermore, Barbara's brother, Jerome Robinson, who is another key ally of Holly's, is hired to work as Bessie's security.
It's all converging.
Yeah.
You have Kate scheduled to give her lecture at the Mingo Auditorium. You have Sista Bessie scheduled to sing the national anthem at the Guns N' Roses charity baseball game nearby.
Yeah.
And here's where the trap snaps shut. Trig, our serial killer, just happens to be the program director at the Mingo Auditorium.
Yeah, the geographical gap is narrowing rapidly, and Holly is managing to work both cases simultaneously, which is really a testament to her growth. While she's actively protecting Kate, she's still turning over evidence for Izzy on the Bill Wilson case.
Right.
And she makes a massive breakthrough by looking at a physical AA appointment book. She realizes the killer is hiding his name in plain sight by subtly altering his handwriting. He turned the letters T-R-I-G into the name Briggs by changing the T to a B and adding a G and an S.
But wait, I have to ask, in the age of digital footprints and DNA and facial recognition, why does King have the big break come down to a smudge of ink in a physical appointment book?
Because King wants to emphasize human intuition and procedural grit over sterile lab results. It proves that Holly's unique brain, her ability to hyperfixate on the shape of a letter, is just more powerful than $1 million forensic lab.
I love that. Meanwhile, the stalker, Chris, arrives in Buckeye City. He completely disguises himself as his alter ego, Chrissy, and decides to hide out in an abandoned building to plan his final attack on Kate.
And the building he chooses is the condemned Holman hockey rink.
Right.
Which, as it turns out, is a location with a deeply dark past for Trig, our serial killer.
The pieces are now all locked in place. And this is where we need to make a smooth transition. We're about to get into how this massive Rube Goldberg machine finally snaps shut in Buckeye City. So, if you haven't read Never Flinch yet and you want to go in blind, this is your official spoiler warning.
Hit pause now.
Yeah, hit pause and come back later. For everyone else, let's look at the climax.
The climax is a masterclass in tension. Trig realizes that all these major figures, Kate, Holly, the police, they are all descending on his territory. So his plan for atonement evolves. He decides he wants a fiery grand finale at the Holman hockey rink.
Why there specifically?
Well, this location is significant because it's where he believes his father murdered his mother years ago. It's basically the epicenter of his trauma.
Ah, okay. So he leverages his job as the program director at the auditorium to execute this trap. He manages to drug and abduct Kate's assistant, Corey. Then, using a fake story about Sister Bessie needing her, he lures Barbara to the auditorium and abducts her too. And he takes them both to the abandoned hockey rink and binds them.
Creating a horrifying hostage situation. Trig then barges in on Sister Bessie and forces her to go out and sing at the baseball game exactly as planned, threatening to kill Barbara if she alerts the police.
God.
And at the exact same time, he uses Corey's phone to lure Kate McKay to the rink, telling her to come alone if she wants Corey to live.
But remember who was hiding in the dark shadows of that very same hockey rink? Chrissy, the stalker. Chrissy has been waiting there for days to kill Kate. But when Kate arrives and Trig attacks her, Chrissy witnesses the whole thing.
And this is where the ideologies just violently collide. In this incredibly twisted moment of divine reinterpretation, Chrissy decides that God hasn't sent her to kill Kate. God has sent her to save Kate from this serial killer.
Wow.
So Chrissy intervenes, trying to play the hero, but Trig is armed, and he shoots Chrissy dead without hesitating.
Wait, so the stalker actually tries to save the victim. That completely flips the script of a normal thriller. I mean, you expect them to team up or something.
It does, and it highlights how unpredictable absolute zealotry is. Chrissy's internal logic pivots in a split second based on what she perceives as a sign. But it isn't enough to stop Trig. That actually falls to Holly Gibney.
Right. So Holly has been wrestling with this vague memory. A contact in AA mentions a joke Trig made about cleaning up elephant poop. And Holly connects this incredibly obscure detail to a memory of the Callaway Circus, which featured elephants performing at the Mingo Auditorium.
Her brain just puts the puzzle pieces together.
Exactly. And she suddenly realizes that Donald Gibson, the helpful program director she briefly met, is the juror Trig.
And she tracks Kate's location using an AirTag on her keys. So you have this incredible cinematic convergence. Holly arrives at the rink. Sister Bessie, who has just finished singing the anthem and actually managed to grab a revolver from one of her bandmates, arrives at the rink.
Good for her.
Yeah. And Jerome, who has been frantically searching for Bessie, arrives too.
And it all culminates in a standoff. Trig sets the rink on fire, intending to burn his victims alive to cleanse the space. But Holly, despite her overwhelming anxiety, doesn't flinch. She shoots Trig dead just as he cries out for his daddy, saving Corey, Barbara, and Kate from the burning building.
It is a phenomenal resolution, and let's analyze what this means for Holly as a character. She is the definitive hero here, but not in the traditional action movie sense.
Right, she doesn't have combat training, she doesn't have like John Wick reflexes.
No, not at all. This climax cements her growth because she saves the day using sheer deductive reasoning, her obsessive attention to detail, and just immense quiet bravery.
It's like she's a classic noir detective, but updated for the modern era. She proves that profound vulnerability, battling crippling anxiety, constantly doubting yourself, can actually coexist with incredible strength. She's relentlessly observant, and she simply refuses to give up.
Which brings us to the deeper thematic meaning of the novel. King is exploring the razor-thin line between justice and obsession. Like Trig initially wants to avenge a wrongful conviction. On paper, fighting for an innocent man is a noble impulse.
Sure.
But it mutates. He convinces himself he is an instrument of justice, but really, he is merely feeding a dark, uncontrollable compulsion.
It's the ultimate danger of moral certainty. Both villains suffer from this blinding self-righteousness. Trig believes his twisted atonement math is flawless. Chris believes his stalking is a direct mandate from God.
That is the true monster of Never Flinch. King is making a profound statement about the terrifying danger of absolute moral certainty when it's combined with extremism. When you believe without a shadow of a doubt that you are 100% right, it becomes incredibly easy to justify horrific violence against people you deem wrong or even just in the way.
Yeah.
The lack of self-doubt is what makes them lethal.
Which is a heavy, very real-world theme. And it's part of what makes Never Flinch so different from a typical Stephen King story. Looking at the reception in our sources is really interesting. Publishers Weekly and the New York Times really praised its cinematic, intricately layered plotting and its sharp social critique. But if you look at constant reader Reddit threads or reviews from places like Kirkus, it was definitely polarizing.
The controversy mostly stems from King's departure from his usual formula. Like, he eschews the supernatural entirely here for a highly procedural, politically infused thriller. It reads much more like a grounded detective novel than The Shining or It. So, for readers wanting ancient monsters, this pivot to human procedural drama was definitely jarring.
So, if someone is listening to this, who is the actual target audience for this book?
It's definitely for constant readers who loved the Bill Hodges trilogy since it continues that grounded investigative feel. It's for fans of intricate, slow-burn crime thrillers where the joy is watching the trap slowly close. And above all, it's for anyone who appreciates a deeply flawed, highly relatable protagonist finally finding her power.
And I'd add that even if someone hasn't read the previous 6 books featuring Holly, King's mastery of tension makes it a gripping standalone experience. You don't need to know everything about Holly's past to feel the ticking clock of these two storylines rushing toward each other. But I have to say, King doesn't let us go easily. The book ends on a deeply haunting note in the epilogue.
Oh, yes. The janitor at the Mingo Auditorium, a man named Jerry, he steals a little ceramic horse that sat on Trigg's desk. It was a childhood gift from Trigg's mother, the one his abusive father nicknamed Trigger.
Right.
When Jerry gets back to his basement room, he hears Trigg's ghostly voice echoing from the ceramic horse, asking, "Where'd you bury her, Daddy?"
It gives me chills just thinking about it, because wait, I thought we said there were no supernatural elements in this book.
Well, it leaves the listener with a provocative thought. Is it actually a ghost? Or is it something deeper? It makes you wonder, even in a book with no supernatural monsters, does violence leave a permanent, haunting stain on the spaces and objects left behind? Can a place or an object ever truly be cleansed of the trauma it witnesses?
That is a phenomenal insight. That Rube Goldberg machine we talked about at the beginning, made of all those lit fuses. King shows us that when the trap finally snaps shut, the explosion doesn't just vanish into thin air. Trauma isn't a clean break you could just sweep up, it leaves a residue. And sometimes, the sparks it throws off ignite fires that we can never fully put out.
A dark but incredibly fitting conclusion to a deeply unsettling deep dive.
That's all for today. Keep reading, keep questioning, and whatever you do, never flinch.